Good evening. For those of you in the audience who have not attended one of these hearings recently, let me review our normal procedure. Staff will introduce each item for consideration. If you'd like to speak, please fill out the speaker form located on the table in the lobby and indicate the item number and whether you are for or against the item. Please give the form to the clerk seated on my left. The applicant and supporters will be heard first. Those in opposition to the request will be heard next. Then the applicant will be given a chance for rebuttal if necessary. Comments should be restricted to pertinent information regarding the agenda item under discussion. If you're an individual, you will have 3 minutes for comments. If you're speaking on behalf of a group, you will have 6 minutes for comments. Speakers should move closer to the podium when their item is being presented by staff. Speakers should identify themselves clearly for the record by stating their name and address. Each speaker should be given respectful and courteous attention. The board may ask questions of speakers or staff members. Information such as pictures, site plans, letters, etc., presented at a public hearing will be kept as part of the public record. If you have something on your cell phone that you would like to show us, we'd love to see it, but you have to promise to send it to staff after the hearing. Otherwise, we have to enter your phone into the public record, and you probably don't want to give up your phone. I would then ask for a motion from the board. Once a motion has been made and seconded, discussion will be closed to the floor. Following board discussion, a vote will be taken. During voting, board members who do not cast objecting votes are considered to have voted in support of the motion. Any person aggrieved by any decision of the Board of Adjustment may, within 15 days, file an appeal to the Board of County Commissioners through the Planning and Development Division of the Development Services Department. Okay, we're ready for our first item.
Good evening, Angie Califer with Planning and Development. Item number 1 is a request for an increase of the projection into the navigable navigable width of the canal from 25% to 38% for a boat dock in the R1AA Single Family Dwelling District and the Lake Sullivan Cove subdivision located at 622 Charisse Place. The proposed boat dock and stairs will be 453 square feet and will be encroaching 38% to the navigable width of the canal. There have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Angie, what's the status of the lot across the canal from the applicant? I know it's privately owned, but do we know anything beyond that?
What do you mean the status?
Like, for example, I mean, is it improved? Are there plans to improve it, or has it been improved?
The current aerials are current. We use the most current, which are 2000 or 2021, which is the most current that we have, but I haven't been out there. Maybe the applicant can speak on that.
Fair enough, thank you.
Kathy Hamill, Development Services. It currently is a vacant lot, and at this time, I'm confirming if it is. It does, approximately a third of the property does have wetlands, which is interesting because the lots on either side have been improved, so that also could be a factor in why the lot is still vacant.
Gotcha, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The questionnaire, item number 3, says that there are 2 directly adjacent boathouses that also exceed the 25% obstruction. Are variances on the record for those, or were those built without variances from this board?
There are no variances on record for those lots.
So the fact that those existing boathouses exceed the rule, since no variances were given for those, us giving or not giving a variance for this property in question, it wouldn't be a matter of precedent then?
No.
Okay.
But code enforcement, I guess, is now aware of those things, so.
We'll be seeing them.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Good evening.
Hi.
Please state your name and address.
Sheila Sikra, Streamline Permitting, 1002 Fort Mason Drive, Eustis, Florida. The directly adjacent parcel across the canal, their dock is located on the other side. If you go back one photo, If you go around the corner out toward the lake, their dock is actually located on another part of their parcel. So the property right directly across from where we're planning to build the new dock, there'll never be a dock. There'll always be 24 and a half feet of clearance between this dock and the normal high water elevation on the other side of the canal. And I assume that those other docks were built before anybody really paid attention to the width issue. I mean, permitting wasn't always as tight as it is now. And I think that they were permitted, nobody caught the fact that they were obstructing more of the canal than they really should have been. There are only 3 affected, see the dock that's the parcel across the canal, and they have a dock on the other part of the canal. There are only 3 affected property owners, and 2 of them have given letters of no objection, and the third is one that obstructs almost half of the canal, and they're not impacted, obviously, in any way, because they can still easily access the lake.
Okay. Any question for the applicant? Yes, sir.
Respectfully disagree with your assertion that they can't build a dock. They can bring it, any subsequent owner.
Absolutely.
But the couple of questions I have is that if you're talking about moving in at, say, 38%, and let's say everybody else around now decides, well, we want to go up to 38%. And let's say if someone across on opposite sides of the canal, well, now suddenly we get to what, 76% of the canal blocked. If that happened, how far apart, how much open water would there be between 2 docks if an across the canal neighbor built the exact same thing you're applying for?
We are obstructing 15 feet of the canal. If they did the same thing, then there would still be 24 and a half minus 15, 9 feet. But I don't know why in the world anyone would ever do that, or if Seminole County would allow it, because they have all these other options. Why would they build it right directly across from this person's boat dock?
Oh, people.
That's true.
And the second, last question, Mr. Chair. The existing dock that's there, what will happen to that?
We're tearing it down.
You're tearing that down.
And it's actually built right on the corner of where the canal turns, so it's not necessarily a very safe navigation situation. So they're going to move it to the center of the parcel, which will take it away from the corner, and it'll be a lot less of a navigation hazard.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So one of the things that we look at here is, how is it creating a hardship to grant a variance, which is what, by definition is, and when the homeowners came in and bought this, it's not like the navigable waters have really changed or anything. So what is the hardship that the resident, that what has changed?
Nothing has changed, it's just lack of knowledge. When they saw there was a dock existing there, and there was a boat moored at it, and they just assumed that they could rebuild something, and didn't know that there was a limitation in terms of how much of the canal they could obstruct. Because currently, right now, with their existing dock and their boathouse, and their boat, which is moored on the outside of their dock, they obstruct an additional 5 feet, more than they will when this dock is finished.
Okay,
People just don't know.
thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd move to deny.
Motion to deny. Do we have a second?
I second that.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. It is denied. Okay, next item.
Item number 2 is a request for a side street west setback.
I'm sorry. Ma'am, you have 15 days to appeal our decision to the Board of County Commissioners. I just want to make sure I mention that. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's okay. Item number 2 is a request for a side street west setback variance from 25 feet to 5 feet for a fence in the R1AA Single Family Dwelling District in the Meadows West subdivision located at 118 Shepherd Trail. The subject property is a corner lot and considered to have 2 front yard setbacks. The front of the house faces Shepherd Trail. The Leah Avenue side is where the variance is being sought. Traffic engineering has no objection to the placement of the fence as it relates to site visibility. And the proposed privacy fence would be 5 feet from the sidewalk and 15 feet from the edge of pavement. There have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Excuse me, any questions for staff? Is the applicant present? Good evening. Please state your name and address.
Brad Cooperman, 118 Shepherd Trail. I wrote down what I'm going to say because I usually talk in circles. So we're looking to replace our current existing chain link fence that, according to our neighbors, has been there for over 30 years with a vinyl fence. We recently are finishing up the addition of an in-ground pool that basically takes up a majority of our backyard now. Basically goes from the west side of the house all the way to the second porch on the east side of the house. We'd like to add that extra layer of security by putting up a privacy fence. Along with that, a majority of our neighbors in our neighborhood have the same fence line that we have on the corner lots. The pictures I took are of all the corner lots except for one that have the same fence line. And that is, if I'm not mistaken, I think 9 or 10 out of the 16 corner lots in our neighborhood. And then along with that, the neighbors that back up to each other, for instance, my house backs up to my neighbor's house. There's a handful like that in the neighborhood. Those all have fence lines that run all the way down the yard through the two neighborhoods, so it's going to keep that consistency throughout the neighborhood. We also want to keep the usable space that we have. We have 2 children that one enjoys playing outside right now. The other one's a month old. I hope they enjoy playing outside. If we were to move the setback to 25 feet, that pushes the fence roughly 12 feet off our house, giving us about, I think, 25 feet from the decking to where the fence would be. And then on top of that, because we have a pitch in our yard where the pool is, down to where the yard sort of levels out would be another roughly 10 feet. So not only would we lose half of that usable space, then another half of that space would have a fairly steep pitch in the yard. So we're asking for the same privileges that our neighbors have right now and to keep consistency with the neighborhood and continue to have a safe space for our children to play.
Okay. Question for staff. Is there any record of the variances in the neighborhood consistent to the same distance?
No.
Okay. But people put them up often
Yeah.
and they don't ask. Okay.
And
Correct.
also the chain link fence, up until about 1, maybe 2 years, chain link fences weren't even required to get a
Right, I
building
understand.
permit.
The metal fence you can see through didn't require a variance. It could be
Okay.
pretty much right on the property line.
And I think my neighbor and myself are the only ones who probably have that chain link fence. All the other ones at this point, at some point, have been updated.
Sure. Okay. A question for you. If we, I don't know what the board's going to decide, but if we were interested in maybe setting the setback instead of 5 feet at 10 feet to get a little more room between there and the sidewalk, is that a problem for you?
I don't think so. I want to say that still leaves a space between the trees. So there's that big oak tree that you see right there, and then there's a smaller tree in the back you can't see, but I'm fairly certain that that does not run into that if we went 10 feet off the sidewalk.
Okay. Okay, any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir. Is there anyone to speak in favor of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do you have a motion?
Chair,
Sir?
motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. It's granted. All right, good luck. All right, next item.
Item number 3 is a request for a rear yard setback variance from 30 feet to 25 feet for a screen room in the R1A Single Family Dwelling District in the Renwood Heights Unit 2 subdivision located at 5334 Cypress Drive. The proposed screen room will be 464 square feet and will encroach 5 feet into the minimum required setback. There have not been any prior variances for the subject property, and this concludes my presentation.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Is there anything you'd like to add, sir?
I would.
Please come on up, state your name and address.
This variance fee was waived by Mary Moskowitz, the zoning official, because this is a replacement of an existing screen room that was legally permitted in 1999. That permit was final inspected and approved. So the structure that's there now, which is storm damaged, was legally approved to be built. It's in the L of the house, if you can put that survey photo back up there. And it does not protrude into the backyard any closer than the house. You see the 25-foot annotation? The house is 25 feet from the property line, and the screen room is 25 feet from the property line because it's in the L of the house. We're attempting to permit to replace the room as is. In other words, we're not changing any concrete sizing. We're not extending further into the backyard. We're merely completing the corner of the house with a room that is identical to the room that's there now that was legally permitted in 1999. Zoning acknowledged that the room was legally permitted, and they indicated that a zoning change had taken place that changed the setback from whatever it was, 25 feet to 30 feet. And this happens quite often. The fact remains that the house is currently in the setback 5 feet, and we're simply attempting to replace a room that was originally legally built there in the L of the house with no additional protrusion toward the setback. In addition to that, there have been many variances in this community for the exact same thing, rear yard setbacks. And of course, those are a matter of public record, and I saw that there were several variances applied for, so if this was denied, it would be selective enforcement because I've never seen a more deserving variance to replace something that was previously built legally, and then a zoning change forced it into a variance requirement. And that's all I have.
Happens all the time. We
I
get
know.
lots of non-conforming properties before there was even zoning regulations.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's not unusual.
I know. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a question for me?
Any questions for the applicant?
Okay.
Okay. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? We have a motion.
Mr. Chair? Go ahead.
I was going to probably say the same thing. Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's granted. Good luck. All right, next item.
Good evening. For the record, Hillary Payton, Planning and Development. Item number 4 is a variance request for 2230. That wasn't me.
You broke it.
2230 South Terrace Boulevard, which is located in the Lloyd's Terrace subdivision. The request is for an east side yard setback reduction from 10 feet to 6 inches for a detached garage in the R1AA zoning district. The request is to construct a 1,200 square foot detached garage, 9.5 feet into the 10-foot side yard setback. A letter of support was originally received from the directly affected neighbor to the east, but she then rescinded her support and is now in opposition upon her review of the site plan. 2 more adjacent neighbors have also written in letters to opposition of this request, which has been provided to you for your consideration. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Is there currently a code enforcement action on this?
I don't believe so.
I didn't see it in staff comments, so that's
Yeah.
why I thought I'd ask.
I don't believe so, not for the existing structure. They're asking to replace it, and that's why they're coming with the variance.
Gotcha, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Is there anything you'd like to add? Okay. Do we have any questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I think considering we have a neighbor in opposition and we're talking about 6 inches here, I, as applied for, and no one's making changes tonight, I would move to deny.
Okay, we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion?
I guess my thinking on it, I might be kind of reiterating myself here, but we're coming up here to 6 inches. A neighbor does not like it, and I'm just a big fan of investment-backed expectations.
Well,
3 neighbors.
right, 3 neighbors. Well,
Triply so.
my thoughts on it when I first saw it is if something had to be done to that side, to the neighbor's side of the property, it would be pretty much impossible without going to the neighbor's yard to do any work on the structure with 6 inches. So I can understand the neighbor's opposition. Okay, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. It is denied, sir. You have 15 days to appeal our decision to the Board of County Commissioners. You can get with staff if you choose to do so. All right, good luck to you. All right, next item?
Item number 5 is a variance request for 116 Plymouth Avenue, which is located in the Harmony Homes subdivision. The request is for a north side yard setback reduction from 25 feet to 11 feet for a carport addition in the R3 zoning district. The request is to extend an existing 10-foot wide attached carport 22 more feet in line with the current structure, 14 feet into the north side yard setback. The lot is within the East Altamont Community Development Target Area designated by Seminole County in order to promote new housing opportunities. The overall goal of the county's program is to stabilize and revitalize low-income neighborhoods through capital improvement, housing rehabilitation, and public service activities. Therefore, staff supports this request. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Is there anything you would like to add? No, sir. Oh, okay. You're not required to come down unless we have questions. Any questions for the applicant? Okay. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Sir.
motion to approve.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second. It doesn't matter.
You win.
Sure.
Austin gets it. All right, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Good luck to you. All right, next item.
Item number 6 is a variance request for 4516 Latimer Way, located in the estuary St. John's subdivision. The request is for a side street setback reduction from 15 feet to 5 feet for a privacy fence in the gateway at St. John's Plan Development. The subject property is a corner lot and has 2 front yards for setback purposes. The front of the house faces Latimer Way. The Swinton Court side is where the variance is being sought. The request is to install a 6-foot-high vinyl privacy fence, 10 feet into the required 15-foot side street setback. The proposed privacy fence would be 4.8 feet from the sidewalk and 14.8 feet from the edge of pavement. The proposed privacy fence encroaches into a 10-foot utility easement, and that building permitting will be required to meet the criteria for placement within a estoppel letter. Traffic engineering has no objection to the placement of the fence as it relates to site visibility. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Yes, is there anything you'd like to add, sir? Good evening. Please state your name and address.
Oscar Lopez, 4516 Latimer Way, Sanford, Florida, 32771. So this is a request for privacy fence. All my neighbors have been installing fencing as well. And the neighbor that I have in my, that faces the backyard, he already installed a fence, but it's part of the fence is a private fencing, which is allowed and within the 15 feet of the property. But then the rest is he installed an open fence, aluminum fencing. The reason why he did that is because he didn't want to apply for the variance. So the reason why I won't like to install that fence is because I have a small dog. It's a teacup Yorkie. She loves to play outside. This is our first house for me and my wife, and we would like to enjoy all the space in the backyard with friends and family. So yeah, that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you. Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request? Come on down, sir. Okay, please state your name and address.
My name is Attorney Shannon Thomas. I represent Mr. Rajit Mittal. He's a property owner at 1378 Swinton Court, Sanford, Florida, a property adjacent to the applicant's property. My client believes that the variance should not be granted due to the fact that it could potentially pose a safety issue regarding the visibility of other drivers coming around that corner. In addition to, my client believes that it will obstruct the visibility of the greenery in the area as well if this variance is granted for the applicant's property. So my client requests that you all deny the variance based on those issues.
Okay. Any question? Yes, sir.
Minor point, adjacent, rear adjacent or side adjacent?
Side adjacent.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else to speak in opposition to the request? Okay, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
motion to approve the request.
We have a motion to approve, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, any discussion? Yes, sir.
I know I'm a broken record on these kinds of things, but it's just, I think in considering there's a neighbor who's opposing it, I kind of feel like if someone bought a house expecting the rules to be applied, the land development code to be applied as written, and expected not to have a fence, I think we should have respect for that as opposed to this change. It's just, yes, sir.
I will address that, however. Sir, you said you represent the neighbor next door to the house in question, correct? So, right there.
So on this graphic, the one on the right?
On the left, I'm sorry.
Across the street?
Correct.
Ah. Not quite as adjacent. Well,
No, that's, yeah.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion?
Yes, I'm kind of not seeing eye to eye with the objection such that if the fence went up, it would obstruct the neighbor's view of the greenery, but from the vantage point of the complainant neighbor, whether or not the fence is where it's proposed to be or whether it is at the required setback without a variance, wouldn't it be obstructing the same amount of greenery?
I think it's a, would you mind if I addressed a question to the attorney?
Go ahead.
Sir, would you mind terribly coming back down? Can you point on the screen where your client's, which one is your client's house, I guess, or his driveway? 'Cause I think that's a good point.
I believe it is this property here. It's one of these two properties. I'm not 100% sure, but it's one of these two.
Okay. So the homeowner, Mr. Lopez, right? The homeowner can put up a fence with no variance required
1360.
It shows it right there, 1378.
without, what exactly is going to be different with the view of the greenery from the complainant neighbor if the fence is where it's required to be with the minimum setback or where or if we grant the variance? I don't understand. What would change?
I'm not adopting that argument, I don't know.
I don't understand that either. I mean, I get the complainant side, but once again, is that even if he falls in the line with the variance, it's done. I mean, it's there.
So I guess tell me if I'm correctly repeating your question, is what greenery, if we're looking at that image, will be blocked?
My client believes that the greenery here, as well as some of the greenery up here, is going to be blocked. I haven't been out to the site specifically as of yet. My client just retained me to attend the hearing today, so I haven't had an opportunity as of yet to go out and actually view the location or the site location. But based on my conversations with my client, he's saying that there's going to be some greenery that's going to be blocked if the variance is approved.
Have you spoken with the applicant?
I have not had a chance to speak with the applicant.
It seems to me that the greenery in question seems to be owned by Mr. Lopez in the first place.
And by greenery, do we mean grass?
That's what I'm assuming as well.
That's my assumption. And also the safety issue regarding the drivers being able to see around that corner. My client feels like that may pose an issue regarding that.
And I
But
think.
we did all take in first-year property classes, though. They told us nobody has a right to lines of sight, though, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? All right. All in favor of the motion, we have a motion to approve. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
The motion carries 3-2, it's approved. All right, good luck to you. All right, next item?
Item number 7 is a variance request for 709 Meredith Street, located in the Balmer and Weiss Manor subdivision. The request is for a normal high water line setback reduction from 25 feet to 11 feet for a privacy fence in the R1AA zoning district. The request is to bring into compliance the construction of a 6-foot vinyl privacy fence along the eastern property line that encroaches 14 feet into the normal high water line setback. A letter of objection has been received from an affected neighboring property owner. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes,
Is there anything you'd like to add, sir?
yes.
Come on down.
Hello, my name is Michael Denzik. I live at 709 Meredith Street, Fern Park. And it's been quite an ordeal. This is the 5th house I've purchased, the first time I've done remodeling. And when I bought the property, the left side of the property in the rear had a 6-foot, and still has a 6-foot fence that runs to the water line. And when I bought the property, the rear and the right both had 3-foot chain link. And my intention was to get a dog, and I needed to replace the 3-foot with 5-foot. I chose to go with the privacy fence on the right, not knowing that there were variance requirements. And I ultimately take full responsibility for that. But it was due to my contractor not fulfilling his responsibilities and doing the research before the work was begun. And I should not have, I apologize for approaching you so late in the process. I don't even know if there was a permit obtained before the work was begun, or if there was a site plan. But several of the neighbors on the left-hand side have fences that all run to the water line. I did not even suspect that there was an issue. When the tenants moved out to the right, and this, I assume that the neighbor that's opposed to this is not my neighbor to the right of me, but it may be. I reached out to him because we share the property line. And I got his number from this tenant, and I texted him, explained the situation, and tried to get his forgiveness. The only reason I see that the variance is really in place is because it's blocking somebody's view potentially. And, you know, I respect them, and if I have to remove 14 foot of my vinyl and put chain link at the end of it, it's not gonna match the other side, but I'll do it. I mean, I wanted to follow the rules.
Okay.
I didn't have a good leader.
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Is there anyone to speak in support of the request? Yes, sir, come on down. Please state your name and address.
My name is Joseph Nemchuk, American Eagle Veteran Contracting. I've been in construction 36 years. I'm 62 years old. As you well know, all of this stuff keeps changing and changing. A lot of jurisdictions don't even require, if you're replacing or repairing a fence, which is what we did, there was already a fence there, we didn't add a new fence, that you don't need a permit. So I wasn't even aware you needed one, since there was already one there and we're just replacing it. Of course, as soon as we were made aware, we immediately filed for the permit, immediately, the same day. I went around the lake, and I found 8 different properties that were not within 25 feet of the high water line, including, as Mr. Denzik mentioned, the home right to the left of his, that solid wood fence that's there immediately to the left of his. I spoke with the neighbors next door. You know, we walked back there, we looked. They said, it doesn't obstruct their view, they're fine with it. Of course, they're renters, so that, it's up to the homeowner for that decision. I don't see how it obstructs anyone's view. The water line doesn't even start, if you're standing in the neighbor's yard, the water line doesn't even start for quite a ways out there. So it's not like the water line's right there and you're obstructing anything. I will, of course, take the 14 feet out, put chain link fence in at no cost to Mr. Denzik. It wasn't his fault. But it's going to look weird, and it's going to be, I don't think, very fair since there's 8 on that lake that are not within 25 feet, including the one right next to him. So I guess we're just throwing ourselves at your mercy, and hopefully you'll approve it. Thank you.
Right. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir.
Sir?
Sir? He has a question.
You had mentioned that you spoke to the directly adjacent neighbors.
Yes.
Who are the tenants.
Tenants.
But if it's the one lot over is thank you, that red flag lot there, those are the folks objecting. Did you speak with them?
Oh, the one in other words, not directly to the right, but the next one over? I did not.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the one that's in red.
So that's the objector.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's odd, because if we could somehow get that lot based on where the lake's at, I don't see how in the world it could be obstructing anything.
Well, it could be just they're adjacent and everybody has a right to insist that the law be followed.
The lake is, way out here. I don't see how that's obstructing anything, honest to God. I mean, if it was, I would admit it, but I could understand the other folks right here. But when you walk back there, you can see how far the lake's out. It doesn't obstruct anything there for them. And this guy for sure doesn't obstruct anything. No way. I mean, even that picture shows that. The fence stops right here. So how is that obstructing anything from this property?
Oh, I don't know if anybody is saying that their view is obstructed, but just everybody does have a right to say, I want the law followed.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying, if the objection is it's obstructing a view, then that's not correct.
And we don't know.
But I agree with you.
But we don't know.
On the other part, sure.
Page 107 is from the opposition. And
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That's basically what they're stating.
What they're stating.
Is that it's
It's right there. Yeah. I mean,
oh, I got it here.
Yeah.
And it's an eyesore, they say. Okay. And they want to preserve the look they have now.
Specifically say blocking, it's blocking their lake view.
Yep.
It's an eyesore. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else to speak in support of the request? Is there anyone to speak in opposition to the request?
Assuming that you're in court.
That's her. That's her.
State your name and address for the record, sir.
My name's Jeffrey Bush. I'm actually in the property that's adjacent to the property.
Okay. And just for the record, I know Mr. Bush from a project we're working on, an expanded detention center. It's actually a county project, but we're working on it. Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I actually have photos that actually show the obstruction. I'm going to give you. So I have enough to be able to pass around if you need that. So.
You can speak in this mic right here.
Okay.
Is it on?
Testing. It is. Okay, perfect. Again, thank you for having me here. We've lived in this property for about 18 years, and like the applicant said, the original fence was a 3-foot fence. It's basically invisible. It's very small, chain link. You see directly through it. It's a non-issue. When the applicant came and they built the new fence, as you can see per the image, the before. Can you pass these around so he doesn't have to actually walk over there?
I'm just getting old and blind.
And actually, yeah, I got like 10 copies, just there you go. It's all the same. Yeah, it's all the same image. So the obvious view when you're looking, and this is basically taken from the adjacent fence. So it's from the fence dividing my property from the other resident that objected to the view. Clearly, you can see that, you know, the tree was taken down, the fence is going directly through that property, and you can see the effect that that has on the property. So that's my one of two objections. The other objection is if a permit had been actually pulled, what they would have actually found is that the original fence was 1 foot on my property. And if they would have actually gotten the survey that might have been required had it been requested, they would have found that it was on my property. So having the new fence, 6 foot tall, definitely an obstruction. 1 foot on my property is definitely not something that I'm hoping that is allowed to stand, or at least extend as far as it is. So
the fence sits on your property?
the fence is actually on my property, yes.
Okay.
The original fence was on my property.
The whole fence, or?
The entire fence is 1 foot on my property.
Okay.
That's
Yes,
a
sir.
separate issue, isn't it?
It is.
Well, no, we cannot, we can't approve a request to place a fence on somebody else's property.
Did you say, is the replacement fence back on the applicant's property?
No, it was placed, like the contractor said, they placed it exactly where the
old one was.
where the old one was.
Oh, well, goodness.
Yeah.
And based on what the gentleman was saying, if I could ask Ms. Baden a question. Let's say the variance, and taking any trespass or conversion issues aside, if the variance is denied, or if they just withdrew their application, took it back to 25 feet, would the fence still be legally validly placed, or are there other variance issues? For example, setback and height and...
If, with it being 1 foot on this gentleman's property, we wouldn't allow them.
I say, if we taking that out, I'm just curious as to whether there should be a variance for the whole shebang, but maybe it's academic now with the trespass issue.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they would, if they take it away 25 feet from the thing, or if they reduce it down to 3 feet, or if they have like a chain link fence, then it would be allowed to extend all the way. But with it being a 6 foot privacy fence, it has to maintain that 25 foot unless
So
you grant a
we've got a
variance.
whole bushel of issues here then.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Yes, question. What is the horizontal distance between the fence posts? I guess this would be for the contractor, you would know.
Well, I mean, once we got the survey from Mr. Denzik, we measured it, and
We should probably
you
have
may be
a,
100% correct, but that is not what we found.
I believe it's 8 foot.
Thank you.
That's it.
Yeah.
If my fence were on the property line that it's supposed to be on, and I'm surprised the survey didn't show that, then 14 foot would have to be removed, so essentially 2 full panels, replaced with a chain link ring.
Yeah, this
Okay.
thing's illegible.
So what's before us is a request to deal with the variance off the lake.
Off the lake,
The high water
yes,
line,
yes.
not the entire fence.
Yeah, don't get buried in the weeds
That's
here.
a separate,
Yeah.
right, that is a separate
It's
issue.
a whole other thing.
However, we cannot approve something that's on somebody else's property.
Point of order, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
That assumes a fact, not an evidence. We don't know that for a fact.
Right, no, I get you.
Yeah.
So,
Just put the chain link 14 feet.
all right. So my suggestion is, because we don't know where it's at. One property owner says it's on his property, one says no, that it's not on the survey, it's been on his property. I would suggest maybe we consider continuing it to the next meeting to give them time to figure out where that fence actually sits.
If the variance were approved, we, in building permitting review, would make sure that it's placed on their property
Right,
line.
I got
So
you.
it would have to be moved.
No, I got you, but I would still like to make.
Mr.
sure
Chair,
it belongs.
I still, just going off the variance, and not to get buried in the weeds,
Right.
as he was saying, is getting pretty deep right now in the weeds. I mean, my thing is with this is that it is, I mean, the objection is clearly for the objection of the,
Right.
of the view. The view has been destroyed. And I agree with that. I mean, so I agree that just based, voting off of what the objection was,
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
you know, I think the valid point here on that is the view that we're looking at right there. At the end of the day, those panels are about 8 feet wide. They're going to take 2 panels off the end of the fence, so the view's going to be obstructed. You know, you can't use that as the basis because, you know, they can come back, take 2 panels off the end of that fence, meet the criteria for the normal high water line at this point. So, you know, I don't want to get bogged down.
No,
because
I get you.
Because we're looking at a view that looks like this, take 2 sections off the end of that fence and nothing changes in the picture, so.
No.
it's, yeah, but to me, it's still 16 feet.
Understood. No, and I recognize that.
All right.
I just don't want to get hung up on, you know, the view's obstructed, whether you take
Yeah, I
2
get
pieces
that.
off or not. So,
All right, let me do this. Let's start with this. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
motion to continue until next month or until the applicant can produce, what were we asking for? Survey data?
Okay,
Motion to continue until next month?
okay. Do we have a second to that motion?
Mr. Chair, may I ask
Yes.
County Attorney a question?
Absolutely.
If the applicant is not asking for a continuance, do we have the authority to unilaterally continue the matter?
Yes, you all do. Yep.
Thank you.
So do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. All right. Any discussion on that motion?
I would like to know why what the purpose of continuing it is at this point. I mean, the applicant has already indicated that if he had to, he would put 2 sections of chain link fence down there, and we wouldn't need a continuance at this point. You know, again, regardless of where the fence is placed, that's an issue up beyond what we're talking about right now. I'm just trying to find out why what purpose is the continuance going to give us?
As I understand it, the purpose of the continuance is that we cannot or may not give permission for the fence to remain if it is in a location it shouldn't have been built in the first place because it encroaches on the neighbor's property.
That's not what we're looking at
Well,
tonight, though.
if I might add too, and the reason why I second it is a couple of things in that I see the gentleman speaking, and perhaps there's a conversation going on that hasn't been going on before. If we vote to deny it, well, then the only option really available to the applicant is to either just take it down or appeal to the county commission, which is expensive. And I was just thinking, you know, if you give them, maybe they can figure something out between the two of them, maybe not. But that's why I seconded it. Did.
And just for the record, that was my assumption with the inquiry, you know, whether you all wanted to base your decision on additional facts that were not present.
Good point.
Okay. All right. All in favor of the motion to continue, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, the motion carries 4-1. We're going to continue it to the next meeting, which is June.
I'm sorry, I should know it off the top of my head. It's the fourth Monday in June.
27th.
27th, okay. I suggest you try to figure out where that fence falls. You still have, even if we approve the variance, if you don't have permits, you still have to work all that out with the county and pay the fines, and they're going to insist that it be in the correct location. They can't approve it to be on somebody else's property either, so You gotta find out exactly where it's at and go from there. It either is or it isn't on his property, you know.
Surveyed, 5 surveys, updated 5 times on that survey.
Okay,
But I will work it out as best I can.
okay. All right, thank you. All right, next item?
Item number 8 is a variance request for 821 Forest Brook Road located in the Forest Brook subdivision. The request is for a south side yard setback variance from 7.5 feet to 6.2 feet for a screen room addition in the R1A zoning district. The request is to bring into compliance the construction of a screen room addition 1.3 feet into the side yard setback. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Okay, any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant...
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes, sir.
I was just taking a second.
Okay.
On the survey, not the aerial, but the, can you pull that up? That's on page 122, if that helps. So is the building offset 6.2 as well? So
Yes.
the screen room would, or the addition would match the side setback?
Yes.
And is that already inside the setback requirement?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it seems like we've seen a lot of that lately, where we got houses that don't even meet the setback requirement. Yep.
The house was built in the 70s.
Right, and so
So, yeah,
setback
that
chambers,
was,
yeah, I get it.
that's, I get
Yes.
it.
A lot of things went wrong in the 70s.
Hey. I grew up in the 70s.
All right.
Yeah, almost with this gray hair, saying, yeah.
Okay, any other questions for staff?
Don't age yourself. Don't age yourself.
Well, I didn't say I was born in the 60s.
Oh, God, it just got worse.
Any questions for staff? Okay, is the applicant present? Yes, sir. Come on down. Good evening. Please state your name and address.
David Fiala, 821 West Forest Brook Road, Maitland, Florida. Prior to us doing this, I went to building and I went to the second floor and I showed them that plan. And I told them I wanted to make sure this is where I'm putting the pad. This is where we're going to do all this. I want to make sure we're okay. Everybody said we're okay. And then I took out the permit for the pad, and the screen guy took the permit for the screen room, and he went in 2 inches from the existing where it was built before, and then it was rejected. And then I had to pay $600 for something that I went to, in my opinion, I went to find out what was right, and upstairs or downstairs, they didn't tell me that the variance was 7.5, and I don't know where I would have to go to find what the actual variance was or is if the people that work in the place couldn't tell me. Where do I go and where would I have gone to get the right thing? And they told me, well, it's your fault because you should have known. Well, where do I go and find out if the people who should know didn't tell me?
Okay.
$600 afterwards.
Got you. Any questions for the applicant? Yes, sir.
Have you spoken to either of your next-door neighbors about?
Nobody cares.
I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, you know, I did everything you guys asked me. They came over and asked me if they wanted them to come here, and I said, you know, I'm not going to waste your valuable afternoon to come and, you know, I said, if you're not in agreement, you know, go, but if you're in agreement, you don't need to come.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying, and let me see if I'm hearing you correctly. Are you saying that both of your next-door neighbors are okay with what you're wanting to do?
Yeah, because it only affects the neighbor on this side.
And you got fence there.
Yeah. He's got a fence, but I mean, we didn't go outside of the existing wall of the foundation, and the screen guy came in 2 inches in from where we put the slab.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? Is there anyone here to speak in support of the request?
There's
Is there
no
any-
left.
Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the request? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved. We have a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. It's approved. Good luck to you, sir.
Nice evening.
I thought the county.
May it be less frustrating for you. All right, minutes. Additions, deletions, changes?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion approved and second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Carries. Anything else for the good of the order? All right, we're adjourned.
I thought for sure you were going to say.